What up? It is Bones, and let's do a little topic video. Now, I'll do one of these every once in a while when I have something that I kind of want to talk about. Now, this one I have been planning for a while, I just haven't gotten around to it. Been pretty busy, a lot of projects going on, but now is a better time than any, so let's go ahead and get into it now. This time we are going to talk about how I feel like I am not the popular opinion. Now, this goes into different subjects, dealing with, of course, what I collect mainly, which is DC Multiverse from McFarlane. Now, we're never all going to agree, and I can actually accept that. I don't need everybody to agree with me. One big thing that I notice is like, there's some people that really like live action figures, and there's another contingency that doesn't. I used to actually be the latter part of that, but now I actually have a good collection of live action figures. So now, I could say I changed, whereas before when Mattel had the license, I pretty much detested the live action waves that they did. But now that McFarlane has the license, I have grown to actually pretty much enjoy the live action. I think the Suicide Squad was one of my favorite waves, and I have a lot of fun with those figures, even though a lot of people might not like them. The same thing goes with the video game figures. Like, I'm not a big fan of the video game figures because I never really was a big gamer. Just something I never got into. I'm a more like physical person, so I don't really spend a lot of time, deep, 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 deep. But I do have the figures. I do enjoy them. I think Catwoman, after I did my little mod to her waist, was really one of my favorite figures. I actually have a lot of fun with her. If I pick her up, she's really fun to pose. Some of the other video game ones I really have come to enjoy, like the Nightwing from Gotham Knights. But that just goes to show you that not necessarily are we always going to agree on everything. But for some reason, I just think that in these next topics, I just seem to be like the unpopular opinion, right? Which means that I think like more people don't think like me, but there are some people that do think like me because, of course, I live in the comments. Even if I don't comment a lot or like to get into it with people on there, I do peruse the comment section, so you will every once in a while you'll see me pop up in there. But I do read a lot of comments, not just on my videos, but like on a lot of McFarlane DC Multiverse videos. But that's a topic for another video, so let's get into this one. Now, first off, let's start with something that we can agree on. We can agree on that I do think McFarlane should try a little bit harder to add a little bit more accessories to the figures. It doesn't have to be tons of them. Sometimes figures come with accessories that really work with them, and sometimes they come with accessories that I just, throw in a box and I never touch again. Some of my favorites, of course, have been Harley Quinn's egg sandwich, the cell phone from Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, one of my favorites. And I actually thought that the Page Puncher John Constantine came with some pretty awesome accessories that really fit his character nicely. But I do think that McFarlane should hear people out because accessories could help sell a figure. Now, the one I'm going to bring out really needs no introduction and no help selling, and that is the Megafig Bane. Now, a lot of people complain that he did not come with fist hands. Now, I did do a video where I showed some custom fist hands that I put on him. But I do think that this could have been another little addition to sell this figure. Now, it didn't need any help because this is pretty much sold out everywhere. You may still have a chance to find him in the wild on that rare occasion. But if you're picking him up online, you're going to pay easily 60, 70, 80 bucks for him. Luckily, I have two, and I'm already working on my third. So regardless of fist or not, he did sell really well for McFarlane. But one thing is that if he did have the fist, I think it would have pleased a lot of collectors. Now, this still leaves the door open for McFarlane to release another version of this, maybe without the harness and with fists. That would be pretty cool, especially for a lot of people that didn't get to pick this one up. But that is something that we can all agree on, that McFarlane should add some more fists to his figures. But one thing I do not agree on, but I think a lot of people do, and that's why I'm the minority, is the extra heads. Now, the reason I do not want extra heads is because when figures are released with double heads, I have to display both versions up on my shelf. Now, the only figure that has come with two heads in the whole McFarlane line has been the White Knight Jack Napier Joker. Now, he did come with a normal Jack Napier head and then also a Joker version. So, of course, up on my shelf, I had to buy two figures so that I could display both versions. And then I also customized the Joker version, painting his skin white. Now, that's not a big deal. It was fun for me, and I love to do that. But just think, if every figure came with a alternate head, I'd already have double use of space that I already have as it is. I do have a little bit more room to squeeze in here. If not, we're going to have to start removing some of the DC Universe classics and the Mattel Multiverse, which I kind of do not want to do. But if it comes down to it, I'd rather have pure DC Multiverse in my office. So it's more of a question of, do I have enough room? But also it's a question of, I'll have to spend double the money as it is. Usually I end up buying basically 3 or 4 is the max that I'll buy of each figure. But imagine if I had to buy for 2 heads, it would be a nightmare. Plus I would have a box full of extra heads that I did not use, because each figure comes with 2 heads. And since I'm only going to use one of each, there's going to be, extra ones laying around, which I just do not need. And just to show you how sick I am.
God, you're sick.
I already started this with, this is the Batbot from the Future's End Wave. Now, of course, this didn't really come with 2 heads, but of course, since I'm mental like that, I had to get another one so that I could build the Joker bot. So now you have the Batbot and the Joker bot, because each side of the head is a different version. And just with my OCD, I could not display one face. I had to have 2 to display both heads. And, that's just my little quirk that I have. But it is something that I think about when people ask for extra heads with the figures. So once again, that's just my opinion, but I feel like a lot more people ask for extra heads. And for me, that would pretty much be a nightmare. Now, I do think I have McFarlane on my side here, because he kind of refuses to release extra heads, alternate heads. He'd rather do gold labels and then just change the head. But, that's just something that is a personal collecting habit that I have, but I know that not everybody else has. But for right now, I'll ride the wave of every figure coming with only one head for as long as I can. Now, another thing that we can all agree on, even though you may not think so, or think that I think this, is that we do need some more female figures in this line. Now, this is a tricky subject because a lot of people get, really their feelings hurt just because they can't, comprehend that female figures do not sell as well as regular superhero male figures. It's just the way it is. It's, I'm pretty sure McFarlane has the numbers to tell him which figures are selling. And I'm pretty sure if you've seen Cyclone, the figure from Black Adam, in your Walmarts or in your Target, you pretty much see what I'm saying, because there are tons of that female figure. I mean, I know it's not everybody's favorite figure or one that would sell, and I do understand that if they were to make an Ivy or Zatanna, that would sell a little bit more than your non-known character, but it's still not going to push the numbers that a Batman or a Superman actually sell, and that's what's going to keep this line afloat. So what we have to understand is, accept all the Batmans and Supermans and Flashes that are released, and every once in a while we are going to get a female figure. Now, like I said, don't jump on me for this, because actually Superwoman was one of my favorite figures of the year. I love this figure. She's awesome. I just love her face sculpt, her look, her body sculpt is awesome. I just love the way McFarlane executed this figure. And I'm pretty sure if there was other female figures, I would feel the same. As I said before, I really enjoyed the Arkham Catwoman. But this takes me into the other thing that I feel like I'm not I'm not really like with everybody else on this, and that is the classic Wonder Woman. Now, of course, every time in the comments for any kind of release or any kind of review, you're going to have one person in there saying, oh, but we still don't have a classic Wonder Woman. And pretty much for me, it's gotten kind of stale. Like, I just, it kind of just bounces off me now, because it's, so many people say it, it's become kind of redundant, because we all know that Todd knows that we want a classic Wonder Woman. And I think the more people complain, the more he's just going to push it back and push it back. And honestly, I don't think he would do this, but he might have like some sort of kill switch to where if the line ends suddenly or if something happens to McFarlane, the final figure released is going to be your classic Wonder Woman or Rebirth Wonder Woman. It's just something like a feeling that I have, but we all want a Wonder Woman. We're all holding out for a Wonder Woman. We will get her eventually. I mean, it's a no-brainer. She's probably, besides Harley Quinn, she's one of the biggest female sellers, so I'm sure a classic version would not be hard to sell. But do not cry, fanboys. You will get a Wonder Woman eventually. It is, I wouldn't be too far to think that it's already, planned out and ready to go. They're just waiting to, hit that switch to start production on her. But sadly, I am not as worried about it as a lot of people seem to be, so we are not on the same page on that topic. Now, this takes me to another thing, and that I know people really hate, that for some reason I do not hate, and I actually enjoy, and it's kind of hard to get people to jump on board with me, but if you see it and you know what I'm talking about, then you agree with me, because I have seen people in the comments agree, with what I think, but I really think that the majority of people do not like it, and of course it is the side eye. Now, the original, really, the thing that started all this off was the Power Suit Lex Luthor, because he had such a drastic side eye, but I have him up on my shelf. I love that figure. Of course, when the side eye figures came out, right away I learned how to straighten the eyes if I wanted to, and I actually did videos about it on the Power Suit Luthor, and also on my Superboy Prime, because that was one that a lot of people were mad at. So I eventually did a custom Superboy Prime with the straight eyes, and although I enjoy like the different things I did to this figure, the straight looking eyes look pretty good. I just have a feeling like when I look at straight eyes now, ever since I like saw this, they just look like they're looking straight like into the nothingness, and they they have like no emotion, like no life in them. And when I see a figure with the side eye, it just gives me that little, like, gives them a little bit of life that they would not have otherwise. The Superwoman is a good example. If you look at her, she has like a little, a skew eye, which a lot of people say that is not as bad as the drastic side eye, but she has a little, she just gives off that little like mysterious essence with her little, eye to the side. But of course, as always, I did do this custom, but I had to have a regular Superboy Prime to have on my shelf, and of course, with that beautiful side eye. It just does something for me. I get what McFarlane says when he says that when they look to the side, it just seems more realistic. But I do also understand that kind of limits you in posing because you can only have them in a certain pose, and for the side eyes to work, it has to be in that certain pose, right? And when you have straight eyes, you have more of an option, where you want to turn the head or whatever. But I actually think askew eyes are probably the best way to go, is like where it's not necessarily straight dead on, but just a little life, this way. I think the Wally West was another one that had a skew eye where it kind of just, not necessarily side eye, but it looked a little bit to the side, and it really makes the figure pop and come alive. So that's another thing that I know I'm the real minority on. It kind of makes me sad to think that I will not have any more beautiful side eye figures to display on my shelf, but it is what it is. One thing I do not do is I do not cry about what figures are released or what's coming up next. I just take it as it comes. McFarlane's gonna do what he wants to do, and pretty much we have no power. As you can see, Bane, people were mad he did not have fists, but he still sold really well. People were mad that he was too big. People were mad that he was sold as a mega fig, even though he's not really that mega. But he sold, and that's the bottom line for McFarlane. Now, the next topic is kind of the same thing, but it's something, that people disagree on a lot, and that is the cloth good cape versus the plastic cape. Now, luckily, we have McFarlane, who has kind of like revolutionized the regular action figure cape game, because he has made a lot of like faux cloth capes, which are like so soft but still plastic, but they kind of have that feeling of like cloth, even though they don't have the dexterity that a cloth cape gives. But it is pretty close, and it feels a lot nicer than the older, stiffer plastic capes, or cheaper, like kind of plastic bag capes that would usually come with those like general little kid release figures, because of course they're probably gonna rip the capes off. But the one figure that we did get that came with the cloth cape was, of course, Year 2 Batman. Now, I have the cape here. Now, I wasn't a big fan of how it was designed, the way this fits on the figure. You have to put it a certain way for it to look good, which I really think like I got it the best way you could actually apply this to the figure. But that's the thing about cloth capes, is that they're really hard to do right, but it's real rare that they are done right, because they're they could easily look so bulky, or like you could see the stitching that makes it look like not believable. And right away I noticed that, and I was like, oh, that just does not appeal to me at all. Now, this cape was actually really nice and thin, so it doesn't have any stitching, so it actually worked really well. But I just did not like this rubber that went around the figure. So of course what I ended up having to do is, I'm working on it still, but this is my Batman Year 2, but with plastic cape. Now, I did have to repaint it from the Three Jokers Batman. I couldn't match the blue perfectly, but I'm kind of there. But I think on the next go around, I'm actually going to get it exactly matching. I think I was using the wrong like blue to base off of, but it's close there. I mean, you could see the difference between the way the cloth cape were to look and the way the plastic cape looks now. McFarlane is awesome because he makes, from like the Eradicator swooshing cape to your regular drop capes. There's just so many different styles that they have now, in action or just static poses. But that's the cool thing about McFarlane, is that he gives you a big choice. But I follow a rule that I heard a long time ago from another collector, and that was that once you put fabric on an action figure, it's no longer an action figure. Now it's a doll, and I don't really like dolls. I like action figures. Now, I know that's, not necessarily true, and it's not that simple, but if you look at a lot of the like high-end figures that use cloth, they don't really look that good to me. I've never been a big fan of those. And far be it from me to tell people what to collect. If they want to collect $100 5-inch dolls, that's good for them, but I'm just not into that. I've always been a retail regular plastic action figure collector. Now, you could go back into my DC Universe Classics days where I just love going hunting for them at Walmart, at Target, at comic stores, and finding the figures that I needed to finish off my DC Classics collection. So, not a big fan of the cloth capes. If you are, that's cool, but I'm just not one, and I know I'm not the majority on that. A lot of people actually like cloth capes, and now with the wire and all of that, like I said before, to execute it right, it has to be done really exact, and I just don't think we're really there yet. A lot of the cloth capes that I see people thinking look, awesome, I just do not like them. And I like a simpler, just regular plastic cape. Now, finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was people complaining or the way we fight about classic versions and, new era, new generation versions that McFarlane is putting out now. Luckily, I do not have to fight or lose sleep over this, little misunderstanding. Why? Because although I've collected tons of classic versions of DC comic characters, and every time McFarlane puts a classic version out, I'm really happy and I buy it. No problem there. I also love seeing interesting figures, new figures that we've never seen before, figures that I've never seen a plastic version in action figure form, which is like Godspeed, the Hellbat armor, of course, all of the Death Metal and Dark Knight's metal figures. Of course, those were the first figures that came out from McFarlane. I have them up on my shelf. I love those figures. But the difference in it is getting like your basic classic, version of Batman. Now, this is not a complete classic version, but you get what I'm saying. This is like everybody's basic, Batman version, or getting something that we never thought we would want or need, which is like the Grim Knight. One of my favorite figures from McFarlane, still to this day. Love Grim Knight. Always like looking at him and posing him. Awesome figure. One figure that we would probably never see today because of the whole arsenal and guns that he comes with. But this is what I'm trying to get, and that is that I know it's not a popular thing to love new characters and new ideas, but you have to be open to that and at the same time be able to appreciate classic versions of characters. Now, I've always been a fan of like out there versions of characters. Like the Joker Dragon was just something that came out of nowhere, but it was really interesting. Even as a younger collector, when I would see like Legends of the Dark Knight, I think it was like 1998, 1997, something like that. And also that other line, it was like Night Force Ninja or something like that. Those figures were like really interesting to me because they were not classic versions. They were just like newer versions. They had a Killer Croc that was like awesome. It was like some very interesting accessories, and just the sculpt and the design were really cool. The Batman from that line looked really rugged and thick, which is how I like my Batman. But what I'm trying to say is those lines caught my eye as a young collector. So right now as an older collector, I like to see things that we've never seen before. And also I'm more of like a dark, like monster kind of, I lean that way. So I like when figures have that like creepy factor to them. But anyways, guys, that's just my take on a lot of subjects. I mean, like I said, we're not going to always agree, but it's no reason to be arguing about it or whatever. We're just here to appreciate this beautiful line of figures from McFarlane. But you guys, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.